this hearing is being held as required by the provisions of Chapter 131, Section 40 of the General Laws of the Commonwealth, an act relative to the protection of the wetlands as most recently amended. Notice of the time and place of this hearing was published in the Fairhaven Neighborhood News on February 2nd of 2023. It's also posted in the town clerk's office, and this is being broadcast on public access cable and under the current agenda. So minutes for approval. We don't have any from the last time, but I know we have what we voted on previous meeting to sign at the end of the meeting.
I brought the sign,
Great.
yeah.
Do we have meeting mail?
So we did receive one letter. I don't have it with me, but it's another Chapter 61 conversion. I can send it out by email. But I think it is something that the town might be interested in, because this is a 27.7 acre parcel that they say the sales agreement is for, I believe, $56,000. So that seems like a pretty low price for 27.7 acres of upland in town, if it's really upland. But
Right.
the selectmen will be looking into that as well. I think they're ultimately the ones who approve it. But I will send it out to the commission. Or Joanne will send it out to the commission, actually.
I'll ask our town administrator, do you have business for us, to meet us for something? Or just part of the audience tonight?
I'm just observing
Okay.
at this moment.
Nice to see you here. On to old business then. We have continued a public hearing of an NOI, Matthew C. Mitchell, 33 Beach Street, file number is SE001-0579. Notice of intent was filed by Matthew Mitchell for property located at 33 Beach Street, map 25, lot 291. The applicant proposes to construct a two-bedroom addition to an existing two-bedroom residence, relocate town water supply, install a septic system upgrade for 4 bedrooms, construct a new retaining wall with associated site work. Portions of the work lie within the buffer zone of a marsh. The applicant is represented by Richard Sharon of Sharon Associates Incorporated, engineers. Plan name is Plan of Site, addition to residence and upgrade of subsurface sewage disposal prepared for Matthew C. Mitchell. That's dated December 28 of 2022. And I believe we've received a request from Mr. Sharon to continue.
For more information.
For more information.
Motion to continue for more information.
And a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
The motion is continued. On to new business. I need a motion to open a public hearing.
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
The public hearing, an RDA, Kathy Tavares, 87 Peckham Road. A request for determination was filed by Kathy Tavares for property located at 87 Peckham Road, map 2, lot 3Q. The applicant proposes to install a new septic system to service the existing 4-bedroom dwelling with installation of a new pump chamber and plastic chamber leaching field. Erosion controls will be installed at the limit of work. The applicant is represented by Richard Riccio of Field Engineering Company Incorporated. Plan name is Proposed Sewage Disposal System Repair, dated January 23rd of 2023. And I believe in place of Mr. Riccio, we have Mr. Mata, correct? The floor is yours.
For the record, my name's Ken Mata, Senior Project Manager at Field Engineering, here representing Kathy Tavares on this RDA application. We're seeking approval for the construction of a replacement system to replace an existing failed system that's on this site here. Just to give you a general lay of the land, it's a 30,000 square foot lot located on the northerly side of Peckham Road. The wetland boundary has been flagged, but it's all on the adjacent property, so it was flagged strictly for buffer zone purposes on, for this lot here. For the record, it's all owned by Instar and anyway. But in the course of citing this system, we also looked at a number of different alternatives. One was obviously the front yard area, as you see here. This area was previously tested by others, and the soils in this area were determined to be unsuitable for, for any septics, in addition to a couple of other test pits that were done in the back here. So our only opportunity to really site this system was towards the westerly side of the lot here, where you see it here. We also looked at the possibility of tying into municipal sewer via Blueberry Drive, which is about 1,600 linear feet away, which would create a substantial financial hardship to this property owner, as the running cost with that would be upwards of like $150,000, and that would be subject to approval by by the city of New Bedford. There is a force main that's out on Peckham Road that, as you probably, most of you well know, it's coming from the, from the schools, and a connection to the force main is just not available for this lot. So we've made every effort to try to keep the footprint of the septic system as small as possible, based on the design perk rate of 30 minutes per inch. Well, also the area. One of the biggest challenges on this lot here is accessibility. I don't know if any of the commission members are familiar with this lot, or if you had a chance to look at it,
right now. There's
to
a
do
pool there.
a site walk on it.
Yeah.
So obviously you could see that from a constructability standpoint. The only viable access would be through this front yard area here, in order to get the the trucks in and out of here to export the material export the unsuitable material from the septic system, which is going to be trucked off site, and then to bring in the sand fill to put underneath the system, and on the raised portion of the system, which is going to be about 3 to 4 feet above the existing grade now. So the limits of the septic system, we maximize it as much as possible, maximize the separation between the wetland boundary and the limits of the system. We're 26 feet off of the flagged wetland boundary here at its closest point. So, that being said, I'll open it up for questions.
What's the lot size?
30,000 square feet.
Pat, did you?
So wetland boundary, buffer zone or actually the wetland? Are you 26 feet into the buffer zone or 26 feet?
No, so from 26 feet from the actual wetland boundary.
Yeah,
Flag
okay.
line.
So, I just texted Joe from the Board of Health. The septic system has not been approved yet, and it's on the agenda for the 21st, which would be after our site visit for the 18th.
Mhm.
And I asked if it was approvable, and he wrote back that I don't know what, if any, revisions, have to be made.
Okay.
So if you want to do a site visit, we could do a site visit. We're not holding them up any to not approve it until the Board of Health approves
Right.
the plan. Or you could approve it based on, an approved plan subject to an approved plan from the Board of Health.
My preference is do a site visit and wait until we get the approval from the Board of Health.
That's my recommendation.
I believe the footprint of the septic system has been staked out in anticipation of the, I know the commission originally had a sidewalk scheduled on Saturday, but given the deep freeze that we had, I don't blame you for not going,
Yeah.
So we'd be going out on the 18th.
On the 18th?
Yeah. Is that right, Joanne?
Yes.
Yes, 18th. Does anybody else have questions for Mr. Motter? Anybody in the audience has questions for Mr. Motter? Okay, in that case, I'll take a motion to continue for further information.
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
In favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Would this be continued to like the next,
Yes, the next meeting would be the 21st.
The 21st?
22nd?
22nd.
22nd.
Whatever that Wednesday is, yes. Right, 22nd. 8 and 14 is 22.
Thank you.
Thank you. So we need a motion to open the next public hearing.
I'll make a motion to open it.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. This public hearing and after the fact, notice of intent, Navasun LLC project, Acushnet, Mass. 2, LLC, 550 Main Street. Still waiting on a file number, or do we have one now?
No file number yet.
Okay. So an after-the-fact notice of intent was filed by Navison LLC for property located at 550 Main Street, map 11, lots 4 and 7. Project includes the installation of a 1,756 kilowatt solar photovoltaic array covering a fenced area of approximately 8.9 acres at 550 Main Street, split between lots 4 and 7. The proposed solar PV system will be installed at one array within the eastern portion of the site. The project requires land clearing of approximately 16.2 acres. The applicant is represented by Robert Bukowski of Weston and Sampson Engineers Incorporated, planning this solar PV development dated January 10, 2023. Project has already begun. Due to a violation, the project now requires an after-the-fact notice of intent filing. Looks like we're turning this over to you first, Mr. Campbell?
Yes.
Okay, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. I just wanted to give
And for the
everybody...
record.
What's that?
For the record, tell us who you are.
Steve Campbell, Chief Operations Officer at Navison. I wanted to just start off tonight thanking everybody. Over the past couple of weeks, we've made it clear that we're here to work with the town to rectify this situation. So as part of that, we have filed a notice of intent. We have also filed an updated stormwater permit. We look forward to getting a review engineer on board to start that process. We are prepared tonight to present to the board. I know the review engineer is not on staff, on retainage yet, but we'd love to get that wrapped up tonight. We'd love to make our presentation. I do want this board to know that we did file an appeal on the cease and desist from the building inspector today. That was more of a holding our rights under that. That is a non-adversarial appeal. We are looking forward to working with the town. We're going to go back to planning. We want everybody on the same page here, and we're open. We're going to be an open book here moving forward. So I can answer any questions, or we can turn it over to Weston and Sampson, and we can go from there.
Yeah, I'd like to do that because we're going, if other things are being continued to the next meeting, so I'd like to hear this now.
And just so the commission knows,
Yeah.
that notice of appeal is a normal
Yeah.
transaction. It's nothing adversarial.
That's what so please.
Yeah, so we met with the Board of Selectmen last week. I think we're all kind of moving in the right direction here. We're willing to work with this town. So there's a couple of things we're working on. Rob will talk about. There's the construction immediate measures to try to protect the site, and then there's the longer term stormwater and other things that we'll get all that out there. But I just want to thank the board for letting us start this process. Thank you.
Before you leave, Steve,
What's that?
we talked in the parking lot real quick about the peer review engineer. So next on our list is GAF. So
Fine.
they're acceptable to GAF. I explained that to them.
So, and Pat, Mr. Hannon and I talked, just let us know what we need to get. We'll get a check cut ASAP and get it down here. So,
And he did say he could expedite what he could expedite. So he is willing to give it a push.
yeah.
He as in Bill Madden.
As in Bill Mann.
And, Mr. Chairman, thank you for canceling last Saturday's site walk. I know we were all dreading being out there, but we more than welcome to go out. And as I sent around the email today, since the Board of Health, since the Board of Selectmen hearing, we have started pumping water off site. We've significantly reduced the amount of water in those basins out there. We're watching it like hawks with the next couple of rains coming. So.
And Bill Madden also wants to do a site visit.
Okay.
So maybe we could coordinate that he's out there at the same time the commission is.
Yeah, that'd be good.
And you could get some input from Bill. We can't deliberate with you folks at the site visit.
Right.
But we can certainly talk to our peer review guy.
Great.
Good.
Nice.
So with that, I'll turn it over to Rob, and we can start going through the presentation.
Thanks, Steve.
That's the hardest part, Rob. Of the whole night.
It's easier to put it together than it is to make it work. It's compact. Is this a good spot for it?
Yeah, I think so. The camera can pick it up.
Good evening, everyone. Rob Bukowski, Weston Sampson. So yeah, as you know, we're here because of the violation notice that was submitted, so we're responding with the NOI. The NOI includes two different phases, construction phase, stormwater management, as well as post-construction. So what you see here on this drawing is the construction phase. Now, We prepared this and submitted it after the building inspector had submitted the cease and desist, which included a statement that we can't discharge water from the site. So what this includes, sorry, this is the wrong side. So what this includes is a series of temporary basins that will be excavated on the site in order to keep the water on site without discharging any. What we've done since then is we submitted a stormwater application for additional interim measures during construction. So I'd just like to take a minute to show you what the difference is here. The idea is pretty much the same. We're still installing some of these temporary basins just to get more storage capacity on site. There is water that drains onto the site from the east side. So what we're trying to do really here is divert some of that water over to the west into this basin. As Steve mentioned, we've got a bunch of frac tanks. There's currently 8 frac tanks on site for temporary water storage. Those are all staged next to the road. The main basin is still to the north, and then there's one to the west. What the idea here is that in addition to just storing whatever we can on site, what we want to start doing is to be able to discharge stormwater, treated stormwater from the site. So this detail down at the bottom includes basically a stone pad and a way to be able to take the water from the basins, filter it, and then discharge it at a rate lower than or equal to pre-construction conditions. So that's will be part of what the peer reviewer does. So I just wanted to bring that up. It's not included in the NOI, but it's something that we're hoping to be able to achieve with the peer reviewer and get approval for.
That was something I recommended when it first popped up, was to think about, getting some type of a discharge going off-site. And then my only concern was that it's at a rate, like you just indicated.
Right.
And that's what Bill will.
Yeah,
take off for.
we did include those calculations too.
Okay.
So what we did next is a post-construction. So once the project's completed, construction's completed and everything's stabilized, this is really the sort of permanent stormwater BMP. So we've got, in general, similar locations for the basin. What we do is convert this one on the south to a permanent basin. We have a primary outfall and then a secondary overflow. Same thing with these other 2 basins. So this is really a more conservative design. We've got large swales. Again, this one to the south, the idea is to divert any water that's flowing on site from upgradient properties over to the west to just sort of we're basically maintaining the existing drainage patterns, but we're trying to reduce the amount of volume that goes to the north, which is really where everything drains now. We still get this basin proposed to the west. We've shifted it a little bit more here, and then the main basin on the south. Again, you can see the swale here. This is a sort of a wide, shallow swale. The idea is to direct the water here, and then eventually it'll get down into this basin. The difference here between from the existing basin that has the outlet pipes in it is we've got outlet control structures proposed in these, so it gives us a little bit more flexibility in adjusting the flows with different orifice sizes and elevations. So that's really it in a nutshell, just a general description of what we're hoping to get to for construction phase and then what we're proposing for permanent stormwater controls.
Show them the picture on the back.
Yeah, so these are some pictures taken, this one when the basin was pretty much full. You can see the diversion trench here and the water level there. This was back in February 8th, sorry, which is today. Starting with the wrongs.
Way back.
It was earlier today. So this is the site. I mean, I think most of you have probably been out there. So, this level was up to basically the top of the berm previously. So you can see the pumping activities have helped. We've got the frac tanks on site. Just pumping between basins, pumping into the frac tanks has really helped, and obviously the weather's helped too. We had a almost record amount of rain between December and January, so.
Rob, what's the total capacity of those frac tanks?
They're 21,000 gallons
Each? or
Each.
Combined? Okay.
each, and we've got 8 of them on site today.
And Rob, we had 4 trucks running today, still cycling.
And those are 8,000 gallon tankers, right?
that's on top of whatever these tanks are holding.
Correct.
Are those trucks taking water out of the frac tanks, or are they just getting?
Offsite.
Okay.
Yeah. So, anyway,
Yeah, that's fine.
sorry. So, Mr. Chairman, we've talked to the truck haulers, and because of some of the location of some of these basins, we're pumping up the hill, because we don't want to have trucks go out and then make a mess. They've requested that we're pumping out into the frac tanks, and then the frac tanks are then being pumped.
Okay.
We are leaving three of the frac tanks completely empty for emergencies. If we need to, we're going to use that as emergency capacity. But we're kind of getting it cycling, and we're committed to keep doing this. So as it rains, as the next couple of rains happen, we're going to continue to get the water out of there. We understand that it's been sitting there for way too long, so we want to get it out of off-site. So. And that's being trucked off-site to a Rainham?
Treatment facility.
Yeah, to a treatment facility in Rainham.
Thank you.
So, does the commission know that EPA was there on Thursday?
No.
Okay.
Because I know you
So-
said they showed
So-
without any,
So
without much warning.
It happened on Thursday, unfortunately not on Saturday, but EPA came to the office at 10 o'clock on Thursday morning, and we went out to 550 Main Street. Kevin Gaspar, chairman of the Soil Board, came to the meeting as well. There's some Soil Board jurisdiction here too as well. And walking the site with the EPA inspector, none of his concerns are wetlands oriented. He's strictly a Clean Water Act inspector, simply interested in what came out of the pipe and what went into the ponds and all of that. He was surprised at how much water was on the site and didn't think that the pumping up of the water was really helping things any. They have charged the groundwater pretty much as far as it can be charged. We're starting to get complaints from other people off-site that their pool liners are being pushed in from groundwater. Their foundation walls facing the solar field have water coming in. And when I was there today, the basin that's up at the top, Rob, where your newest basin that you built, when you come in the entrance, it's on the right, behind all your rails for your solar panels and stuff. That basin was like, yeah, so that was pretty chock full, and there's water leaking out of the bottom of the berm, and it's running down the road and going up front, and all your erosion controls are on your loom pile are underwater again. And I think that the pumping up has reached its maximum saturation point, and you guys might want to think about not charging any more water to the ground there. And it was even the inspector's suggestion that what's there just needs to get off-site and let the place recover from what's been introduced to the groundwater from up and attenuating back down to the bottom.
Yeah, and ultimately, that's really what we're looking for, is to get back into a situation where we can discharge water from the site.
Yeah, so his feeling was that all the basins need to be empty, and then get into your plan of dewatering, so that when there are smaller storms and there's an appropriate amount to dewater, we're not up against somebody making a mistake and sending more water off the site than should be. But I think the neighborhood needs a break from the mounding effect of the groundwater here. It's definitely mounding up. And I think you've really reached the saturation point. And that's just a suggestion. So the other thing is the EPA has told me explicitly to let Navison make whatever corrective actions they have to make under their construction general permit. That they have a construction general permit, and that we don't have the ability to inhibit what they do to be in compliance with that. They don't have a notice of intent. They don't have any order of conditions from us. So we're really flying by the CGP, which to me, as far as getting this into line, is adequate. Because he'll be back. The inspector's coming back next week.
Yeah, I agree, really, the issue is the cease and desist that prohibits us from discharging water from the site. So I don't think we're gonna be able to get into a position
but
where
we
we're
don't-
trying everything out.
My recommendation is based on his recommendation, that you not discharge any water to the ground until you get all of this out of here and give the ground a chance to send some more of this mounded groundwater downstream.
So just a couple things related to groundwater, because I know it's come up before. So these are all sea soils, which are pretty tight, which is why you can see even after this much time, the water's not really draining. So based on the topo that was flown in December, the bottom of that northernmost basin is about just 2.4 feet above seasonal high groundwater table. And seasonal high groundwater isn't necessarily where the groundwater is, it's where evidence in the soil was observed. So when the permitting plans were done, there were test bits done, and they looked for redoxymorphic conditions in the soil and identified that elevation as the stormwater, so as the seasonal high groundwater. So just as a little bit more background on the groundwater.
So are you,
But pumping to the basins is causing ponding on the site. And that was my one comment to Mark Anderson when we talked about putting it up top and let it attenuate, was not to let it pond. And we've reached the saturation point. There's a new PAT in charge out there. There's a whole bunch of PATs that work for Bates. And I don't know his last name, but he was there when EPA came. And he said that the best infiltration they got out of that new basin up top in a 24-hour period was 2 inches. So it's just leaking out of the bottom of the berm and going down the road.
I'm gonna ask him a question, and then I'll let you, so, it sounds like you're saying as soon as water is getting into those 3 basins, it needs to be pumped out of there immediately and into these frac tanks?
It shouldn't even, they're pumping into the basin and hoping that will infiltrate into the ground. And then if they can't put any more in the basin, then they're putting it in a frac tank and sending it off in a truck. So and I understand that infiltration is a hell of a lot cheaper than sending it out in a truck, but I think we've reached the point of maximum saturation up there.
All right, I'm gonna plead ignorance then. How are they pumping into the basins? Are there like pumps in ground that are pulling?
So they got
water
gas,
up?
6-inch gas pumps out there, and they're running, I don't know how many 100 feet of hose.
So, Mr. Chairman, if you
Yeah,
don't mind,
please,
so,
please.
one of the whole pumping exercise happened when we were trying to alleviate these northern basins, right?
Yeah.
Because we were not allowed to discharge any water.
Right.
We created this basin, we created the splash pad up here, and virtually what we were doing was we were pumping up to the splash pad because we still couldn't get it off site, and then it was running back down. And so what we were trying to do was trying to figure this out. We were trying to work with a local trucking company to get it off. We're trying to figure out who would take it, right? So what we're doing right now is nothing is going in here. We're not pumping anymore, and I'll guarantee you, we will not pump anything in there. I agree that it's saturated,
When I was
right?
there today, they were just
they
rolling the
pumping into
hoses
it?
up from pumping into
Okay.
it.
I apologize if that's a
No.
mistake, but
You're not there.
no, so
Yeah.
what's happening is we were pumping out of here to here.
Mhm.
You can see the pumps, there's pumps like right along the basin. And then we're pumping from here into the frac tanks. And then the trucks are coming up and rolling, and then they're pumping out the frac tanks, and then they're moving. So as we now start with all of this was kind of alleviation of these basins. And what we're doing is we're trying to get rid of all of this before the next storm.
Yeah.
And then we're gonna start the process again. As soon as these fill up, we're gonna start pumping back up and start pumping off-site. Until we can come up with a plan
Yeah.
that someone approves to allow us to discharge at some level and give us, right now, we can't get anything off-site, so we're keeping it all on-site. What we're saying is, let us really slowly get it off, and we'll control it, and we'll clean it like we're supposed to. And that's what we're trying to get to.
So just so you know, and I'm not blaming you guys, but on Thursday when the EPA went out there was a line running from one of the frac tanks around the loom stockpile, the big loom stockpile that's been stabilized there.
Yeah.
And they were discharging the water to the ground
Okay.
behind the loom pile. And I pointed to the hose that it was full, and that the valve was open in the frac tank, and they were like, no, you don't, we're not doing that. So the EPA inspector walked around the loom pile, and they were.
Okay.
And the Bates project super wasn't there. He'd had a doctor's appointment, and he came in the middle of it.
Okay.
And he was so upset at what he saw that he actually slammed his hand in the door of his car, getting out of his car. But that's the kind of stuff that's happening if you don't have somebody from your company out there, eyes making sure that they don't do what they have to do.
Yeah. Our intention right now is to get rid of this water, right?
Yeah, so if you could just try
And,
to go outside.
and we will remind everybody that that last storm on 26 was an inordinate amount of rainfall. We had 14 days of continuous rain. It was kind of,
Murphy's Law.
exactly. The day after you issued the enforcement order, it rained for 14 straight days and then culminated on the 26th with a lot of rain. So this, we're trying to catch up. We're getting this offsite. We've done a lot over the past week. And we'll work on making sure that.
But you
this
have
happens.
seen some of the email, we are getting newer complaints.
Yes.
And whether they're justified or not, I don't
Right.
know. I haven't gone out, but we are.
So
getting
I
newer.
asked the Board of Selectmen, anything comes in, send it to us and we'll look at it.
Yeah.
Right? We'll look into everything. Right? But- So I can guarantee, we will take care of this. We're not gonna pump back into the groundwater. We understand we need this thing to alleviate a little bit. All right.
Anybody else have questions? Mr. Bukowski, Mr. Campbell? Anybody out there with questions? I know, you're all here to back them up, I understand.
The real questions will come after, GAF gets into this thing and starts
Okay.
looking at it.
Right.
We get on the site visit, he can educate everybody to what he sees.
Mr. Chairman, just
Yeah.
one more thing. I think it's been our intention, and we appreciated the feedback from Pat and Joe on, it's not their responsibility to help us do what we're supposed to be doing, but we really appreciated the thought of, maybe like a couple of wicks here or there, get off-site really low and try to control that. We have turbidity meters coming on site. We're getting ready for this. So the quicker that happens, the quicker that some of this other stuff we can clean up and get rid of the water.
So we had an internal meeting this morning about another company, solar projects, who want to get started.
Yeah.
And they've had some startup problems themselves. And my recommendation to the building commissioner was that we don't hold anybody back from getting into compliance and give them the permission to finish putting in their roads and finish putting in their drainage stuff and get that done and then worry about the planning board and the minutia after that. So I'm in favor of, letting them do whatever they need to do in the short term, as long as it passes muster with ECGP.
Yep.
It doesn't cause any new problems. If we get any new complaints, then we need to
Then we need to stop. Yeah.
take a quick stop and
Yeah.
go check it out. And I would ask, something we did on another enforcement in town, is if you get any complaints and you're gonna go out, call me, and I wanna go with you.
Okay.
Because you may see something that I don't see, or
Yeah.
every time I went on an inspection with the other company, we agreed, but if we went separately, we never agreed.
Got it.
So it
Yeah, and I mean,
expedite things.
and we're starting to think about this too. I don't want the Walshes, for example, to think that we're just sending a pipe right out to them. We're starting to we want to be thoughtful about this,
Yeah.
and it's going to take a little bit of time, but people are going to trust us and show that the water that's coming down there is not, it's got a low turbidity, it's coming at a rate that's not ripping out of there, and we can try to just, as Rob said, the whole site goes there now, we're trying to figure out ways of keeping the drainage patterns, but not pointing it all directly right at the Walshes.
You probably said exactly what the EPA inspector said, walking around the site. So, his big concern is turbidity.
Yeah. And one of the big points, and Rob and I had talked about this, I think people know we inherited this design. I'm not bad-mouthing that design. I think that design ultimately, if we had stabilized, might have worked. But we're looking at this now, we're not gonna do the single pipes, we're gonna put erosion control, outlet control structures, so we can control what goes out when better than just a pipe that just blasts out. So we're being a little bit more thoughtful about this.
Have you seen the fines in the bottom of the frac tank? Have you pumped one out completely, and then how much is it collecting? Have you?
Mark, you can't see at the bottom of those things. They're 100% sealed, so you don't really see what's on the bottom.
Yeah.
So eventually we'll figure out what's there, but.
I don't think it's staying there long enough, Ryan.
Yeah.
They're pumping and going. So,
Yeah.
a good thing.
I've cleaned them before. It's
It's not
not
fun.
fun.
Yeah, and you're in the unusual position too of having every board in town watching you.
Yes,
So we know that what you're saying is being tracked, and get a good feeling we can take you at your word.
and I said that to the Board of Selectmen last week. We are here to make sure that everybody is watching and getting comments addressed, and we're not gonna be here. I want this to be across the board,
Mhm.
and everybody understand that that's why we're here, and we're willing to do that.
In my experience with Steve Campbell, is he didn't work for the company that had the violation. Well, he didn't own the company, he worked there. He did come in and resolve the problem, and he did do exactly what they said they would do
Mhm.
in the end.
Right.
So it's just getting them to the finish line, and we'll be good.
Yeah, and hope for not 14 days of continuous rain, but
That's March weather in January.
yeah,
Yeah.
but we'll get there, and we'll deal with it. It's our problem now, so we have to deal with it. So,
Okay, anybody else questions then? Well, we don't have a file number, so we have to continue, so I'll ask for.
And we'll plan on a site visit for the 18th,
That'd be good. Yep.
and we will try and get the engineer from the peer review to go. He might want a premium for going on a Saturday. Are you guys okay with that?
Pat, I can't make the 18th. If it has to be the 18th, I can't. We can have team members. If you want me here, it would have to be the 25th, or...
Well, we want to try and get this done on our meeting on the 22nd.
Okay.
So if just Mark could show up
Yeah.
and take care of it.
Yeah, Mark and Rob and Linda. and
Yeah,
everybody
Rob
else.
should come out on a Saturday.
Yeah.
Thanks.
No, that's fine.
And it's Melinda's email that gets the credit for me saying, all right, fine, we won't do a site visit on Saturday. I'm basically pleading, God, no. And I was gonna call it anyway. but-
I was the only one that was for it.
I would have gone as well, but, it's like, okay, we don't.
No one would have gotten out of their cars.
No.
They would have just
And
sat at the top.
We don't need the town getting sued for a frostbite lawsuit, because the chairman's a hard-out, so no. All right, motion to continue until the next meeting
For more information.
for more information. and for
I make a
file
motion
number.
to continue for the next meeting,
A
for
second?
more information.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, need a motion to open.
Motion to open.
Okay, and a second.
Second?
So we have a certificate of compliance for any electric company doing business as Eversource Energy / transmission line right of way. File number is SE001-0533. Certificate of compliance was filed by N-Star DBA Eversource Energy for the existing overhead transmission line right of way located at Middle Road. The applicant has completed 2 geotechnical borings within the existing transmission line right of way. The floor is yours.
Hello, my name's Chris Newhall with Eversource Energy. Back in, I think, 2018, and for the record, my address is 247 Station Drive in Westwood. Back in 2018, we submitted an NOI to conduct some geotechnical borings off of Park Drive and off of Weldon Lane. Our project was delayed for several reasons, but then kind of came back to life within the last year and a half, 2 years. We completed the geotechnical borings for which we had an order of conditions just this past October. We completed those within a day for each one, and then essentially completed them to our plan. We used timber mats to get into these locations and wetlands so that we could assess the subsurface conditions to help us design some structure foundations for a new line that we're looking at along that right of way. That has not been fully designed yet or submitted to the commission. We anticipate doing that though later on this year. So we will be back in front of you for that. But we completed the borings in October, pulled out our timber mats, put down a wetland seed mix, and then put straw down. And so we've submitted our certificate of compliance request, and that's what I'm here for tonight.
You were going to see that on Saturday too,
That's right.
however.
So I've been to Weldon Lane, but I have no idea where it is where you worked on the Park Drive side.
It's to the north, so if you were
Yeah.
to drive Park Drive and hit our right-of-way, you go to the north and right where the right-of-way basically almost makes a 90-degree turn to the west. It was right at that corner. It was very small, probably honestly about the size of this space right here.
I was just gonna say, it's such a small disturbance, it really didn't even matter.
Right.
N-Star is very diligent about all their B&Ps and all of their things, and that's all of my experience.
Yeah.
I don't see any problem with giving them their COC.
No, I mean, we were there, we started.
Yeah.
So,
That's my recommendation.
Anybody with questions for Mr. Newhall?
I've seen both of them, and it looks good.
Okay, so, you wanna make a motion, Ryan?
I'll make that motion to issue the
Second.
certificate of compliance.
Second from Everett. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed or abstaining? That's
Mr.
unanimous.
Chairman, I just had a question.
Oh, sorry, Dan.
Are you, so I just have a question for Eversource. Are they expanding their system to make way for future solar?
No, it's not just
Upgrading the
for
system?
solar, it's a new line, which is an extension of an existing line, but
Yeah.
this new line basically goes from Mendel Road in Acushnet up and all the way over to Fall River, so it's actually an interconnection with National Grid, and that will allow us to basically take power from, any areas of our system and be able to transmit it back and forth, and to just basically ensure the reliability in the area. So if there's a major transmission line disruption, we can shut down that line and bring in power from a different way, whereas previously, if we had that major disruption, we wouldn't be able to bring in the enough capacity to keep, say, the Acushnet and the just southeast coast region in general. So these are all reliability projects that more or less create redundancy in our system and additional connections, such that, like you've got a room in your house where you can turn on a light from either side of the room. That's essentially what it is. It's just another line that'll allow power to get to where it's being needed.
Does that go all the way over to Brayton Point, or are you going directly?
It does not go to Brayton Point. It connects at at the Bell Rock substation in Fall River, which is National Grid's substation over just north of the reservoir.
Yeah, all right, thank you.
And the borings are for those steel.
So the borings are just to understand if we're going to hit rock or what type of soils that we have there. For the most part, we like to do that because we will be drilling a cored foundation. So we will drill down about a 6-7 foot diameter hole. We put a casing in, we fill it with, put a rebar cage in there, concrete back up, and it just helps us understand what those stress loads are going to be on that foundation so that we can design it to the proper size and depth.
Awesome.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
That motion passed unanimously, by the way, Joanne. Okay, Dan, I'll take motion to close that.
Motion to close.
Second.
All in favor? It was just, we didn't necessarily have to. Next is budget review.
So, Joanne,
Yes.
I'm gonna ask you to explain this to our chairman. You spent the afternoon working on this. So we,
Need a copy then.
yeah, I've got it here, but we haven't had a lot of communication from this building on our budget. There were budget hearings with the finance committee, and we don't seem to be on that list. So Joanne took the initiative to call over to accounting and say, what's going on with the budget, where's our budget? And they said they sent it to us previously, but we don't remember getting it. And there's just a few discrepancies in it that they've budgeted more for the clerk than the clerk makes by a couple of $1,000s. We don't know if that's a contingency. There are no contingencies really for stormwater. They put $23,000 in there, and that's,
It's a lot like what it
That's-
had been.
yeah, but that was a flat rate deal with Conoco, and that's just not gonna be the deal with whoever you wind up hiring.
No, but I used to remember that there wasn't enough money in the budget to, and when Marley was here.
They never gave
to do
the commission
stormwater.
enough money for stormwater. They never gave stormwater enough money.
Even though she was doing she'd been doing stormwater
Yep.
bylaw research anyway.
Yep. So Thursday night, there was a selectmen's meeting about the solar fields, and one of the selectmen brought up the fact on budget that, we were probably gonna need $50,000 to $100,000 for stormwater in our budget. And I know Jamie just left, but he had mentioned when he came to work for the town that the last town he worked for spent $400,000 on stormwater. And that, we were getting a really good deal, so it's up in the air. I say we ask for the high side and see where we land. But if we wind up not completing our MS4 work and EPA comes in, I would certainly like to be able to point to the town leaders who wouldn't fund it. Because $23,000 doesn't even start the car for the amount of work. This is our 5th year, and everything has to be redone from the first year forward. So it's gonna be a lot of work. We do have a agreement with the Mass Maritime Academy for their interns to do our wet weather testing. And the wet weather testing, the samples go to a laboratory, and they have a grant that will pay for all of the laboratory work, and that's a huge savings to the town. If we wanted to, we could look into having the buzzards, I don't know what they call themselves, but it's the Maritime Academy.
Mm-hmm. No, the Buzzards Bay Action Committee, I think.
No, but
Well,
it was another Buzzards Bay something. We could look into using them.
It's Bernadette Tabor, then it's a project, isn't it?
Yes, it's Bernadette
Bernadette,
and her
Buzzards Bay
crew.
project.
But they only work cost plus. They only work by the hour. And I felt that we should get a quote to do the work certain. And when they sent over the work they had done, they'd only done like 7 manholes in 2 months. And they're interns, they're volunteers, they're students at Mass Maritime. And, you know, and they do the best they can. But the supervisor that goes around with them, I believe, is making $50 an hour to be the supervisor. So we need money for stormwater. And then the overtime part, and I know I'm just remembering what you said, the overtime part, there's not enough money to cover Joanne's overtime. And with the amount of work coming in, you know, we might want to think about authorizing Joanne to work an hour or 2 hours of overtime a week now, temporarily, and pay her from the Wetlands Protection Act fund. Because we are getting backed up in the office. And things will start stacking up in the desk. And there's no time to do minutes or even watch meetings and all of this stuff going on, so. Do you want to add anything to that?
I mean, I can just explain.
If you would.
Yeah, so the overtime account has the $450 in it. I've already expended all that. The meetings are longer, as you know.
Yeah.
That money doesn't go very far, so they let us go into the negative, and, you know, at the end of the year, we can kind of shift some of this around if possible, but I would think we'd have to add another, at least $1,000 in there for 26 meetings, or 24 at my rate of pay. It's gonna come out to about that.
Mm-hmm.
We can reduce the.
So you're saying 1,000 plus the 450?
No, yeah, the 1,400, yep.
Yeah.
On the second sheet, I have a little highlight there that, for the request column.
Oh,
So you can see the
okay, gotcha,
450, I
okay.
put 1,400 there.
Yep.
On the longevity, they still had Marilee's amount in there. So my amount would be 684, the other portion coming out of the Board of Health, where I work in there still.
Mhm.
So that can be reduced and offset a little bit of that overtime request. Other than that, we left everything the same. And I left the MS4 permit figure. We don't know what that is.
Yep. And if they don't want to fund the stormwater, my recommendation would be that we ask which other town official wants to be the person responsible to report to EPA on stormwater.
Mm-hmm.
Because at the moment, I'm the responsible party, and I'm not comfortable with it.
Who made the determination on the 23K for this year? Who made that?
They just knew that that was the number last year.
So they just used
This
last
came
year's
from the
number?
town administrator's office. And some departments were asked to submit a level funded budget and then a budget 5% cut. But I understand that everybody's pretty much getting a level funded budget.
I see.
But we haven't been in front of FinCom yet.
Last meeting, you mentioned there had been talk about changing the structure of some of these offices.
Yeah, I think that went up in flames.
Okay.
So, one of our selectmen is adamantly against, doing that.
Mhm.
That conservation actually functions with a part-time agent. And why would we make it a full-time agent and a full-time clerk? just to reorganize the department, and then create a $75,000 new position to oversee everybody. And it turns out that the Board of Health can't be overseen by anybody by Mass General Law. The Board of Health's autonomous. Politics can't interfere in what the Board of Health does. And they're not amenable to, giving up their part-time health agent money and having me come over to conservation full-time. And they're not interested in having anybody be Joe's supervisor or anything else. And then there's a major opposition from some of the selectmen to that. And it doesn't, the word I got today is it's just, doesn't seem
So
possible.
it's looking like for this upcoming fiscal year that it'll be the same. You're splitting your time
Yeah,
between Conservation and Board of Health.
yeah,
And the same for you,
Yes.
yes.
which is not what was originally proposed when you
No.
were hired. That you were going to be full-time with Conservation.
Exactly.
And why hasn't that happened? Because your work is backed up.
Yes. I keep recommending it, you guys keep recommending it, but I don't know that Joanne wants to give up her time at the Board of Health either. I don't know, that's something
Yeah.
that she needs to tell you, so.
Well,
I mean, if I have to make this work. I mean, maybe the flexibility, a little bit more flexibility. I mean, Joe's great to, if I tell him, I got stuff, deadlines and stuff like the other day with making that schedule for the site visits. I mean, that took me all morning plus sometime in the afternoon. Getting the schedule from you, calling the individuals, emailing them, waiting for them back, it takes a long time. Plus, other things in the morning just happening. It's just a lot of preparation, and Pat could see how long it took me to get it all done. It's not hard, it's just the time to do it all. So I go over there, and Mr. Correa is very, lets me be able to work on some of those projects in the afternoon. So if I have that flexibility, that's great. If I can help the Board of Health and stay there and cover lunches, great. I'd rather not leave out of there, but if that's what if ultimately that's what needs to happen, then, that's what will happen.
So in general, the Board of Health has been supporting our budget. So a good amount of my hours from the Board of Health have been going into the Conservation Commission. And Joanne has to go to the Board of Health office and try and do conservation work from another desk, another computer. She should either do the work in the Conservation office. Joe, I need another 2 hours today, I'm gonna stay in the Conservation office. And if there was a way to charge back that money between us, if there was a way for Nick to split the baby there and say
Right.
Joanne spent 5 hours, but I don't know if you can move money from one budget to another, from a department to another, I don't think you can. So,
I mean, if it slowed down, maybe I could give more time back to the Board of Health at some point. I guess that's a big discussion that would have to happen, I mean, if they want to run their office maybe with one person and they're okay with that and move me over there, then,
they don't want to give up that part, I mean, Joe's talked to me about that. And
Right.
he doesn't want to give up that part-time position, and I don't blame him, because once the money's in your budget and you give it up, you're never going to get it back.
Right.
And they need that part-time position for when, Keating opens back up. So. I mean, my recommendation would be that, Joanne comes over to the Conservation Commission full-time, and we end all of the angst and anxiety, and, I mean, she'll be watching a video trying to do the meeting, and two people walk into the counter with a question. She has to shut the video off, then go back and figure out where she was, and then the phone rings. Or I ask her a question, and so on and so forth, so. Or, you get another part-time conservation clerk, and Joanne can, keep her Board of Health hours and do that.
I think I just need some time to catch up.
Yeah.
I don't understand why we cannot use that WPA money to do that, to effectively get me to where I need to be. I mean, if I keep letting things get behind and behind and behind, I'm never gonna get caught up. This is a deadline job. I can't stop one thing and don't finish for you. Everything has to be done at a time. So I just need, maybe Mr. Correa will let me go over there for a couple weeks and just cover lunches, or maybe it's a discussion we could have. and, you
Yeah,
know.
I'm
until
still
they
waiting to
figure it
hear
out.
from our selectmen as to when I'm going to be on the agenda to discuss the budget issue that I sent to them about
Yeah.
extra compensation for
I
you.
mean, I enjoy working in the Board of Health too, but, you know, I know things gotta change sometimes.
Well, again, I'm just thinking back when the proposal was made to have, instead of a full-time agent, and you splitting your time, it was gonna be the other way around.
Yeah.
And that was the logic behind having a part-time agent.
Yes.
Right?
And the money you were saving
Yeah,
from the, I mean, they're saving, the town's saving $30,000 by having a part-time agent.
mhm.
So it's not like, you know, they can't fund what Joanne
Right,
needs
and yet
to
the
do.
final-
And then
work
we
and all
took
that
on
other-
stormwater on top of
Yeah.
that, Pat.
But all, yeah.
Oh, believe me, I know.
Yeah,
Which is
no, I'm
a
saying for
drive
me,
is, yeah.
for
Yeah,
me,
and all-
that
And all of
wasn't
that
part
work
of.
is still there, and
Yeah,
you're not giving
and this is,
enough
as you
time
can
to
see,
do it.
there's a
So,
lot going on.
I mean, if town's going to insist that you're splitting your time or you're splitting your time, that's one thing, but my preference is that you're able to work in conservation full-time and get all of this stuff done and not be, wondering, how am I gonna knock this list down?
There's a
There's
major
plenty.
stress level here for Joanne because she takes the job very
Yeah,
seriously.
we know that.
She doesn't want to come here and tell you that your minutes aren't ready. She really, it really bugs her.
Mhm.
I
It
don't like
does.
to be
It
behind
does.
on anything.
So,
It's just that you really like watching those videos. So, your sense is that they're gonna tell you level funded budget, but I like the fact that you're saying, you need an increase in the overtime.
well, and they're also facing a negotiation with us now because the Steelworkers Union has been formed and recognized by the town. And we have elected officers and done all of that stuff, and we're ready to start negotiations. And that would need to be in the budget. Because they know that there's an unsettled contract
Mhm.
here. And they need to be able to, unless we're gonna go, a year or two without a contract like the DPW did. And that possibility exists. But it would be nice to have a placeholder in our budget in the event that they do ratify a contract through collective bargaining.
Mhm. How much longer is this process happening?
The union process?
No, just what Joanna showed us here, your,
Just a couple of weeks. We're on a very short leash with the budget thing.
Yeah, they had
because
some
of town meeting and
meeting
yes,
yesterday,
getting it
yeah.
on the warrant. Right.
Yeah, I'm gonna email the FinCom secretary and find out when this is gonna be discussed.
So what feedback or input do you need from us? Or are you just doing this to?
Just so you agree with the numbers, or your recommendations, is there anything that you think, needs anything?
Well,
I don't see,
no, you left.
I don't see the pollinator garden in that budget anymore.
There's energy that was made to pay for the water that you use out there. The pollinator garden stuff comes out of the conservation filing fees, which they allow us $2,500 to use, plus
Okay.
office supplies and
So that's where
anything
that's
else we need to
approved.
purchase.
All right.
We were talking about, Pat, making a stormwater revolving account for that. Is
So
that-
that's, well, and we've asked several times, or I have brought it up several times, that stormwater fees should be going into a revolving account for
Mhm.
stormwater so that we can use that money to pay for costs for stormwater
Right.
rather than taxation.
Mm-hmm.
And that's fallen on deaf ears as well.
Okay. I would certainly,
I mean, they're telling us we're in a budget crunch, but they don't want to use any Wetlands Protection Act money that's
I
designed
know, I don't.
for paying salaries here. It doesn't make any sense.
Like, why would you want to increase the overtime if we have that money and that's what it's there for to use, right?
mm-hmm.
What are you saving it for?
I know.
It can only be
yeah.
spent for conservation, it can't go
Right.
anywhere else.
Right. Yeah, and, the stormwater budgets, this MS4 permit budget's gotta go up. It seems like 23,000 is not nearly enough.
Right.
Not if Jamie says he comes from a town that was spending $400,000 a year.
Right.
Right.
So I think we need to plug that in, get this over to the accountant.
Well, and that means that the town should create this revolving fund, so the funds are there, and it's not tapping into taxes, it's tapping into project fees
Yes,
to pay for this.
developers who are bringing projects to our town.
Exactly,
Yes.
Right.
yeah. That seems like the best way to do it, it doesn't cost any of us money to do that.
No. I mean, why should a developer come in and build a 10-lot subdivision, leave the town with a whole bunch of stormwater controls that they're gonna maintain and pay for?
Mhm.
No, that's not good math.
So does this town need a letter from us saying, we strongly recommend that you create a revolving fund for the stormwater? And,
I would ask someone to make a motion to, you know, let's notify the town administrator that, you know, we do have substantial money coming in from stormwater fees, especially the solar fields.
Mhm.
You know, that's an $800 permit. And, you know, the money's going into the general fund right now.
Mm,
And then they don't want to give us
no.
our fair share from the general fund to cover the expense of what we're trying to do with the
Mhm.
stormwater. And it may not even be enough in the first couple, well, it won't be enough in the first few years to cover
Mhm.
it, but it will build up over time.
Well, that seems to be a cheaper option than having the EPA fine us because we're not getting this done.
Yes,
And those fines would cost us more money.
yes.
Okay.
And we're out doing enforcement, and we're, you know, we're calling the kettle black. Because at some point, we're not gonna be in compliance if we don't get this money appropriated and do that work.
Right. Okay. Well, I don't know if I can make that motion or one of you make the recommendation that the town create a revolving fund for stormwater funds
Yeah.
to use to help.
Would that the town administrator be notified, is what you're saying? You said something about notifying the town
Actually,
administrator.
why don't we ask the commission to authorize the chairman to send an email to the chairman of the finance committee,
Mm-hmm.
where it really matters, or to the secretary, to the chairman, alerting him to the fact that we're the stormwater authority now. There are costs associated with stormwater for the town, and that we want a revolving fund. And we would like the balance of the revolving fund to be, that we can spend, to be $50,000. So we'd be approved to spend up to $50,000 out of that fund each year for stormwater if it was available. Because if we only do it for $5,000 or $2,500, you're going back for a transfer or an approval from the FinCom every time you want to do something. And 50's on the light side, and it'll probably be 2 or 3 years before you even have that much money in there unless we have a whole bunch of more solar fields.
So are these strictly for MS4 inspections? What would,
Stormwater period. If we want to bring in a peer review contractor to come give the commission advice on something that doesn't involve a project, a violation. So we go out to a violation, we say, geez, we know, this is a little over our heads, let's have someone come in and give us some advice. We could spend $300 or $400 out of the account and have someone come in for 2 hours and give us professional advice.
will this also go towards MS4 inspection?
Yes, it would be part of, stormwater is stormwater, yeah.
Okay.
I don't think we will get enough in the account to cover our MS4 completely, but it's a break somewhat for taxation.
Mhm.
And it gives us a tool in our toolbox if we want to bring in an outside consultant.
And you're saying the 50,000 would be the cap in that fund?
There has to be a cap. I think our wetland, our filing fees is $2,500.
Yeah.
That's all we could spend out of that a year, but there's more than that in there.
Yeah.
And at some point, we want to maybe push that up a little bit for something else.
Like pollinator. Okay,
So we need to make a motion then, right?
yeah, somebody can make it, I can't.
I'll make a motion to allow the chairman to send an email to the finance committee.
Chair.
Chair, finance committee chair. Chair.
I will second.
Any further discussion? No. In favor?
Aye.
Okay, I will let you all look at the draft first, of course. All right, yes. All right, any other budget questions, commentary?
Nope.
Information? Okay.
Mr.
No.
Chairman,
Yes.
on the MS4 requirements, in order to kind of focus in on the areas that are most detrimental to the EPA, you should check out the map, the MS4 map for Acushnet. It really follows along the Acushnet River. If you put your focal points on that, that will help you. So you're not running your tail across the entire community,
Right.
but you're focusing in where EPA wants you to. And that way you don't have to expend the kinds of funds that are necessary to do community-wide concerns and begin in that direction and phase in your MS4, which is what they want you to do.
So I'm gonna have to tell you that that's not accurate. We're already in our 5th year. We've already done all of those things in years 1 through 4. We have to go out and recreate the wheel for year 5.
There's also other
And
departments
that's, and that's what
that
our
are involved.
consultant
Your
will advise us
DPW, but is very heavily involved in an MS4 requirements, not just the Conservation Commission. It should go across more departments in order to be in compliance.
I'll definitely take a look at that EPA site.
Yeah, they have the letter and they have the map for each community of compliance.
Take care of them.
And I do probably agree with Mr. Henry, you're probably out of compliance, because I think that passed last summer.
Just sort of curious, so we're in year 5, then we'll have to start again in year 1. So was year 1 when we'd focus on where EPA says do this first?
We gotta go back and do public outreach again and do all of those things. There's a lot to it. You have to do all your infiltration testing again. You have to do your dry inspections, your wet inspections. We need to get SWIPs for our DPW, our parking lots here, all these places. We need to get all of our fire departments and stormwater pollution prevention plans for all their parking lots and things. Yep, it's very, very inclusive.
What is our part of the whole?
We hire an engineer who puts all that together.
And we oversee them, or do we just, like what do conservation have to do?
So the engineer interacts with me.
Oh, okay.
He writes a final report.
Yeah.
He presents it to the commission, gives the background on it. We tell you what work was done and
For
the
each
report.
item, or for just in general, the whole?
It depends what's required in that section. So what Conoco did last year was go out and did all the outfalls and all the dry testing. They went to the DPW and recycling area and did SWIP inspections and wrote a report there and made recommendations. There's a recommendation to spend like $50,000 at the DPW to make stormwater.
So would that all have to be
Repairs.
done again, because it was done last year?
Yeah. Yep. They never did it. So none of these things were done that were recommended, so.
All right. Good to know. Okay, thank you, Joanne and Pat. So on to the next thing here, the stormwater. There's a motion to reopen this hearing,
I'll make a motion to reopen.
and we have a second.
Second.
All in favor, this is a continued public hearing, stormwater amendment to a previously approved stormwater plan for Paul Boucher and Nancy Durfee, 7 Morton Lane, file number SC001-0566. A request to amend a previously approved stormwater plan is filed by Paul Boucher and Nancy Durfee for property located at 7 Morton Lane, map 14, lots 15H and 17. The applicant requests a review of the stormwater management calculations submitted by Hero Engineering LLC, and that plan sketch submitted on July 22, 2022 by Hero Engineering LLC. The floor is yours.
I want to thank you for the last meeting and allowing us the opportunity to explain what we have seen occurring over the course of time with the Conservation Commission on our request. We left it a little bit open, ended on some items, and we were hoping to wrap some of those up, maybe beginning with the release of the cease and desist that was put on the property on September 2nd, 2022, and the enforcement order that was applied at that time.
So we've got a project here that's less than 40,000 square feet. What's the total acreage of this work being done?
So we have a project that was permitted with the commission and the federal government at 1.5 acres. They hold a construction general permit with the EPA, and they hold a NIPDES filing with the EPA. So the plan, the job was approved to disturb the 1.5 acres, put in the basin, and do all of that work. That was what was approved. So it's not just 40,000 feet. And what we agreed to with Mr. Haru was rather than put them through the expense of putting in a basin that they didn't need, hypothetically, that let them go ahead and put in their floor base and see if it worked. And for me, it didn't work, doesn't work, and won't work. And my recommendation was to put in the basin and finish what was approved. And you folks voted not to uphold the enforcement order, but we didn't leave anything open on, how the project's getting finished, what the standard's gonna be, nothing. It was just, I've called Mr. Haru and he's not calling back. And I've called Zenith and Zenith doesn't represent them anymore. I think they said that at the last meeting as well. So I don't know where we're at. I continue to go by and check it out after rainstorms and do that, but I'm just sitting back and waiting to see what's gonna happen. I'm not gonna issue any more enforcement orders there if the commission's not gonna uphold it. There's no sense in doing it. Just, that's that for me.
So we put together some information with the commission to kind of help with this.
So this information should have come in prior to this
I
meeting,
understand, but
so that we had a
we're
chance to
just-
see it.
We're just simple, like, we're just trying.
You already
No,
have
you
this.
keep reminding us that you're town officials and you know so
I
much.
did not.
You did at the last meeting. I got phone calls from the public asking, how could you dare tell the commission that you're a town official somewhere else and I sit in your chair? People were appalled at that.
Well, let's get on with what's in the packet, otherwise we're gonna be here all night.
So the notice of intent on the very first page, percentage acreage of property to be altered, 20.5% is 39,116.88 square feet. So that is not an acre and a half. That is under an acre by quite a bit. And when we do the calculations of what we're disturbing, it does not take us over an acre or 40,000 square feet. The EPA requirements on a SWIP plan is anything over an acre. We ended up with a SWIP plan, not sure exactly how, but we do. Are there any more calculations?
No, those are the calculations for that there. Then you turn the page, our engineer, or our original engineer, on number 7, checked off, no. And why is this exempt? Because it's a single-family house. We got caught in, at the very beginning of this project, of the board changing, review engineers, not knowing who was going where and what the hell was going on. The planning board didn't even know what the hell to call this project from the beginning. So this notice of intent was created by Zenith Engineering. Now, I don't know who did up the notice.
Orders of
The orders of
conditions.
conditions. I don't know, it must have been somebody from the commission, whether or not it was your agent, but that order of conditions was created.
And it says in the order of conditions that we're not exempt, but our notice of intent says we are exempt. So there's discrepancies throughout the permitting process on our project. Those are just a few of them.
So one of the things we'd like to get cleared up tonight is, as we discussed on the sidewalk, which I don't believe the commission realized, that we couldn't bring any equipment on site to do the grading that is asked of us due to the fact, cease and desist. We bring a piece of equipment out there, we create more of a mess, that puts us in further hot water.
With the
So-
cease and desist, we can't anyway.
Right. So in order to move forward, we need the stop work order released, and we need that first violation ratified or released, because it was all about the silt fence, the dumpster, and what your agent called construction debris is cordwood. So we're kind of like our backs are against the wall. We're damned if we do, damned if we don't.
The vote that was taken by the Conservation Commission on the enforcement orders on September 28th, the vote was to install the silt fence, to remove the dumpster, which had already been removed, and to remove construction debris. There is no construction debris on the site. There's our cordwood. So I know they're getting confused between asking for the release of the cease and desist and the enforcement orders, and whether or not any of this applies to us at all. Like, are we exempt? Are we exempt from your bylaws? If you go further into it, the Mass DEP says that we're exempt. And that's the second one, 310 CMR. I think it's highlighted.
Yep, stormwater management standards shall not apply to a single-family house.
Right, so that's us. We are only a single-family home. There's nothing more happening.
And the only thing with DEP requirements for single-family house is erosion and sediment control, which is there.
Around the envelope of the entire
Your
project
silt fence.
and beyond.
And it's also in the stormwater handbook, Mass Stormwater Handbook.
And then on the next, where it says authority and highlights at the bottom, this is your bylaw. And if you go to the 7th page, which is the 3rd page for you, it says number 7 at the bottom. It's 40,000 square feet of disturbance, of which we didn't disturb 40,000 square feet. And we have yet to be able to find in your stormwater bylaw any mention of roof drains that would apply to us. And if you go back to the notice of intent, which is, it states that we have C and D soils, which I believe does not allow the roof drain system to work properly. And I don't
know where sandy soils came from, because we sure as hell don't have sandy soils. And that P&C soils calculate, reference was from our original engineer. And you heard Navassan, for that matter, what did he tell you? It was all D soils.
C soils. Yeah. And of course, soils change from site to site, but in the notice of intent, the engineer clearly describes C and D soils, of which that is where they are. If you go further into it, if you took a look at our site, the location of the roof drains was placed over a stone wall. We would have to take the stone wall out, which seems...
Which was there before?
The stone wall, it's a historic stone wall. It's a property line marker, and it means that there wasn't many boots on the ground looking at the actual site. A lot of the engineering was done, on a computer in their office, using, the tools that they had at their avail on a computer. But sometimes you really need to see the site, to see what the actual conditions are, while you're creating an engineered plan.
Trying to phrase my question properly here. Unless someone else wants to ask something else first. So if this is the sheet from the original NOI,
Correct.
and it's written in there that it's less than an acre, how does that match up with what you were saying, that it was 1.5 acres?
That's part of the problem. When we started this project, the previous town planner recommended the engineer. So we said, okay, we're gonna go with recommendation from the town. I wanna say at the time it was started, it was 5,000, because the 40,000 hadn't changed yet.
The 40, it was still 5,000.
Still 5,000 square feet of
Yeah, actually,
disturbance.
it's been 40,000 since May of 2020.
Exactly. We started the process
21?
in
21.
January
May
of 2021, looking at the property, we went to, in fact, if you look at the agendas on the planning board, they never changed from just being proposed. Like, we went in for an informal discussion. It remained an informal discussion throughout the course of the planning board's, our experience with the planning board. They just didn't know what to call us. They didn't know whether we were an A&R. We weren't a subdivision. We're not subdividing the property. We're a single-family lot. Whether or not we even required to be there or not is in question still, but we have gone this road, we've gone long and far, and we've tried to meet the requirements that have been placed upon us. And I think some of it has been inaccurate. And what we're trying to ask now is, do we continue to be inaccurate? Is at some point, do we look at this and say, this could be wrong, but we can correct it? Or do we continue to be inaccurate with this? Why are we doing this? If we've been exempt all along, and we've just continued to go along because we want to please you. We want to do the right things. We want to do what the town would like for us to do, which is why we went to the planning board and did exactly what they asked us to do. We followed the guidance of our engineer, sometimes when we knew it wasn't correct. But we thought that's what the town wanted. Is this what the town wants? That's what I'm asking you probably tonight. Is this what you want? Is this what you meant to do? Is this what you meant to a single-family lot?
I'm gonna have Patty answer the question I asked, if you can. If this NOI form says .898 acres, so 39,000 plus square feet, and you said no, it was 1.5 acres.
That's their indication in the CGP that they filed with EPA, and it was filed.
And I would like to also say, there are many inaccuracies in that SWIP plan. We are also a marine facility in that SWIP plan, if you look at the details.
Gravel boat storage.
It's just a cut and paste. I understand.
Who filled out the SWIP plan? Was this the engineer?
Yes.
The engineer from Zenith.
That sounds like Zenith is really kind of.
Joanne sent me the file, I read all that stuff, it's in there.
It's in there.
So Bob, the one thing that's been missing from this whole thing is the peer review never happened, right? We agreed to send this to GCG for peer review, and GCG ghosted us on this. There's never been a peer review. So if they want to dispute that there's been some errors by their engineer and that I'm wrong and the regulations are wrong and the bylaws are wrong, let's have a peer review. Let's get a professional opinion rather than just having someone stand up at the podium and say, we're just trying to make you happy.
The peer review applies to stormwater management standards.
Yeah.
Correct?
Yeah.
Which wouldn't apply to something that's less than an acre, that's 40,000 square feet.
But it does apply, and the storm drains do apply, and all the roof drains do apply.
How does it apply if it's under 40,000 square
And it's a
feet?
single family,
I'm not gonna have a debate tonight. I've
No,
had enough
I'm-
debates with
neither
these
will
people.
we.
I'm asking the same question, however.
Yeah, and I'm telling you that we need to have it peer reviewed. You need to have, whatever I say is not right, no matter what I say. My enforcement order wasn't right. You didn't want to uphold it. I
No,
showed you clear.
because it wasn't the time to do the work.
But I showed
it's
you.
wet.
I know, but there were options to that. Could they have bought a couple of bales of straw and thrown it around the site to stabilize the site? Yeah, they could have. They could have done that. It's not my job to tell them
The
what to
site
do.
is stable.
And
Yeah, you can say what you want, Mr. Hannon, but I'm telling you right now, there's no water coming off that site making it out to the street.
I disagree.
So we know there's gonna be runoff because That happens on properties. It just can't increase what's going to the next lot.
They can't have more coming off the site
Right.
post-construction than pre-construction.
And if anything, they're trying to have a little less because,
Do you want to keep the fin?
well, they don't want to.
No, they didn't want to have less because they
No,
wanted to have water get to the
I was in the
fen.
process of correcting myself.
But having turbid water get to the fen doesn't do the fen any good. And that's what's going on right now. And that's what they want to let happen in perpetuity.
What kind of water is getting to the fen?
The turbidity of the water, but it is being cleared out by the check dams. The rain event that occurred was so much rain. So we basically, you know, as we had asked, we took and channelized it and sped it up, and it went over the top of the silt fence. I completely admit that it did do that, but we had 3.5 inches of rain overnight within a 5-hour period. Then we continued to have more rain. We have added more hay bales, we've gone in, we've cleaned out where any kind of erosion had occurred, specifically on that corner where you have Dolores, where Dolores and Morton Lane meet. We cleaned all that out, we added more material, and we know that there's more to do. We're not saying that we don't want to correct it and make it right. We want to make sure that what's coming off the property and what's coming, what we can control. What we can do, we will do, and we'll continue to do it.
But
This is going to be we'll be constantly out there. We know that. This is part of the love of being there, but
the water that's,
water.
the water that's out there is not basically coming off the lot. It's coming off the street. It's coming down from the corner. It's been going down that way for the past 100 years.
The water is
It's-
coming from other properties even, and people who are pumping because they have so much water in their basement. I see the pumps. I see where the water is coming from. I mean, we tracked it. We're trying to pay attention to all of these things and make it right.
The swales are in to clean the water before it ends up in the wet meadow.
It is doing that job.
And it's doing that job. The water's gonna go down that way anyway. You had that much water on that rain, that 3.5-inch rain event. Of course it's gonna top over the silt fence, but the silt fence ain't meant to hold back water. And that water is designed to go down that way anyway. If it's gonna top over the silt fence and you still got a foot of water in there, that water coming over the top is clean water. It's not coming from the bottom, there's no silt. By the time that water got down near the driveway, you could drink it. I don't care what this individual says, we were out there. It's clean water. Further up the road, when it first gets into where Dolores Ave is, yeah, was it silty? Of course. But as you see the bays, less and less silt. By the time it got to the driveway, there's very little silt. It was clean water.
I don't remember the language that's in the enforcement order or the cease and desist. Do you?
No, and that's why it would have been good to know that this was coming up tonight. We could have been.
Well, Joanne, can you send that electronically, if you can find it?
I have a copy of it.
And I will send the pictures of the video of the water that you can't drink coming off of the road and going over the top of the silt fence, full of silt, out to the fen. And that was what I based my last enforcement on.
3.5-inch rain.
Excuse me,
right?
I haven't interrupted you tonight, so let me talk to my commission, please. So I documented that very well, and I was very careful of what I did. And I asked if they hook up the roof drains within 21 days. That was my ask. 3 weeks to have the roof drains hooked up. The pipes are right there. They're right next to the roof drains coming down. And then to stabilize the site. And that's why I said if 550 could do it, they could do it. And 550 spread straw. And that's how they stabilized their site. And I will send you all the pictures. I'm not looking to belabor this thing tonight. I'd like to go home at some reasonable hour. And this is a back and forth at every meeting, with this applicant of, we're good for the environment, but I say they're not. So I'll show you my proof, they can send you their proof, and you folks, you're the ones who vote.
So I want to look at the enforcement order and the cease and desist.
Yep.
And what I'm not able to square in my head is looking at something that says it's less than 40,000 square feet, and if we wouldn't ask this of anybody else, why is it being asked here?
There's more to the regulation than they're telling you about, and I'll send you that too.
Well, how about if you tell us what's more than the regulation so we can understand it? First off,
Yes.
I'd like to know,
I wasn't done talking, but I am now. I'm not gonna say another word until I send
well,
that
I'll
information.
ask the question to the
I'd
chief.
like to know what's in the regulation that's missing.
You have it. Read it. It's not missing. It's they're failing to read it. They're reading the first paragraph and saying, single-family home is exempt. I went through it with Mr. Haru the night we were there. And I got a phone call after that from Zenith saying that Mr. Haru had called him and told him that Zenith was right,
Are you referring
and that he
to,
had made a mistake.
Mr. Chair, is he referring to your zoning board bylaw?
Stormwater
The
regulation.
Stormwater bylaw?
Regulation.
Stormwater regulations, under authority? Or exemptions? Because of the applicability, activities requiring a permit, no person shall perform any of the following disturbances, land 40,000 square feet is exempt. Then you go further on, where it says administrative review of certain exempt projects. Is that what you're referring to, Mr. Hannon? Okay. It says any land disturbance activity which is exempt from the permitting requirements of this bylaw and which is performed in connection with a project for which a building permit is required shall be reviewed by the Stormwater Review Board to ensure that the design, testing, installation, and maintenance of erosion and sediment control operations shall adhere to the standards specified in this bylaw. That's all it says. Erosion control
We've done that.
and sediment. And that's what we did. So I don't know what your agent is referring to. And the other question I'm going to ask, if you could show us where storm roof drains are required in your rules and regs, because I have not seen it anywhere in black and white.
This a lot in the last 2 weeks. All right. So in the next 2 weeks, we're gonna have a look at language in the enforcement order, language in the cease and desist. Take another read through these things, even though I think we're about to propose the upgraded bylaw that we're gonna vote on the town, well, we go through our language and then we have a hearing and all that stuff first, but ultimately to be proposed at town meeting. Yeah, I wanna put this to bed too, and
Well, we do too.
and I want to be nice to get this project done, so that way the water is managed, and, you know, we don't have to talk about it anymore.
If it wasn't for that silt fence issue, which, okay, was it partially our fault? Correct. But to have the cease and the stop work order put on the property, we were just in the process of getting the site stable. So now it all stops. So you're saying put the storm drains in, put the roof drains in, stable, how can we do that when we still got a stop work order on the property? It'd be one thing after another. We put a machine on site, something happens with the machine, it gets stuck, it gets buried in the mud, we blow a hydraulic line, now be another violation. It's just one thing after another, after another. Our intent here was when the good weather came, Mr. Hannon says, well, let's get some forebays, let's get the things in. Something is better than nothing. We got lousy weather coming in.
Mr. Hannon didn't say that.
Oh, yes, you did.
All right, we'll watch the video
You
too.
watched the meeting.
We'll watch the video too.
On the 12th hour, November 9th, well, now we're into crappy weather. Crappy weather's right around the corner. Our site engineer, contractor was out there. We did what we could. Weather turned to crap, we stopped. Our plan is to get this thing done once the good weather comes. But we can't put a machine on site with a stop work order. You guys need to lift that stop work order.
Mr.
And
Chairman,
wanted on site with this flag.
on the 28th, when the commission ratified the vote that you took, which, because we've never received a final enforcement order that's signed by the commission. We only have the original one that was received at our house the day the cease and desist was issued. You voted that we had to install the erosion control to move the materials and to remove the dumpster. All of those items have been done. The dumpster wasn't even there by the time we got the cease and desist. The dumpster was only there to take off the really horrible material of the sheetrock so that we didn't end up with a real mess of sheetrock in the yard. So that's what the dumpster was used for. It wasn't used for any hazardous other materials. It was parked into the driveway and was removed as soon as that part of the project was completed. You wouldn't want to leave a $400 dumpster on your lawn for very long anyway. It's quite expensive. So, and they give you 2 weeks to do it, and we did it in less than 2 weeks. So that was already moved. The construction material is moved, and the erosion control measures have been in place since October.
And approved.
And approved. You proved that they were installed properly, and Mr. Hannon agreed with that as well.
And that's what's on that enforcement order?
No.
Oh.
Well, the first enforcement order
The
was
first
the three items that she just read off to you.
No, the first enforcement order had a variety of things on it, but when you took the vote, the vote was clear. I went back to listen to the video, so the enforcement order says other things need to be done. But when you took the vote, which we didn't receive anything else from the commission, after you signed it, when you ratified it, you decided these were the things that you wanted us to do to ratify the enforcement. But again, we never received a signed copy from you.
Your mail got returned. I just sent
That's
it
right,
to
they didn't change their
148
address.
Summer Street, and it was, I think I had mentioned that to you in one of the emails. I'm not sure if this is the one we're talking about, but I know
Right,
several
right.
times
You're
that
right,
the
Joanne.
mail
So I don't-
has come back.
Yeah, I did receive that one.
And I I thought I sent you everything through email version, but I can check.
Yeah. I don't think I have a signed copy, but if I am
Okay.
wrong, I apologize.
No, I'll look.
But and I would think that the
Because we're-
ratified orders would have your vote embedded in it, like it would say those things,
Mhm.
because that's how you ratify the enforcement, so. But I only have the original.
Okay.
We do appreciate it. We understand that this has been complicated for you, it's complicated for us as well. And we appreciate you allowing us the time to talk to you, like we're talking to any, to talking to people. And we appreciate that. We understand this is unique and unusual. We feel like it's unique and unusual too.
All right, motion to continue to the next meeting, and then we'll put it to bed then, I think.
Make a motion to continue the next meeting.
Second.
Second.
Favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Motion to reopen the continued public hearing. And a second?
Second.
Favor?
Aye.
Okay, continued public hearing, stormwater. José Costello, Park Drive, and Drive, map 17, lots 66 through 84, map 18, lots 12R, 12S, 18, 18G. A stormwater permit application has been filed by José Costello for property located at Park Drive and Deep Brook Drive, map 17, lots 66 through 84, map 18, lots 12R, 12S, 18, 18G. Here in Acushnet, the applicant proposes to construct approximately 2,350 feet of roadway with associated drainage and utility systems to serve a 15-lot residential subdivision. The applicant is represented by Jamie Bissonette of Zenith Consulting Engineers, LLC. Plan name is Deep Brook Estates, dated October 24, 2017. It was continued for peer review and green cards. Do we have either?
Did we ever get the green cards?
I
don't think so.
No, I think,
Think so?
I'm not sure.
Well, they'll be in the file, we can check them.
Yeah, I
And
can
the
check.
check, you said the check was submitted for peer review.
check was submitted and peer review has begun. I got that phone call on Monday, that they've assigned an engineer to it, and it has begun.
That's good.
But there's a little more to report there.
Okay.
So while EPA was in town for 550 Main Street, they said they had time to go to some other sites. So we went to Deep Brook. And there are issues at Deep Brook as well. And a very thorough inspection was done there. And there will be an enforcement from EPA at that site. So he's only a clean water inspector. He's not interested in the wetlands violations that are at Deep Brook. But after those 2 rainstorms, the basin that is installed at Deep Brook, but wasn't finished being constructed, released all of that water into the wetlands. When I went out taking pictures of all of the jobs in progress the day after the storm, everybody's basins were chock full to the ceiling, but the basin at Deep Brook was empty. And I didn't have to walk too far to find it. It just blew right over the basin and went right into the wetlands and over their erosion controls, but he didn't construct the basin first. So I had, 2 weeks ago when I was out there on an inspection, and as you know, Mr. Costello made himself the inspector for NIPD's. So when I was out there 2 weeks ago, I asked the contractor to get in touch with Mr. Costello and tell him that I wanted his inspection reports, his maintenance logs, and his corrective action logs. And crickets from that. But a week later, Zenith called and said, just want to let you know, we're the new SWIP inspectors. You know, we're doing it now. And the EPA inspector picked up on the fact that, you know, he was trying to be his own inspector, and I think that was a bit much for someone who's a businessman and you know, who he is to try and say, I'm gonna be doing my own NIPD's inspections. So I didn't get the reports, I didn't get the maintenance logs, and I didn't get the corrective actions, so I'm assuming they don't exist. That'll turn into a penalty situation from EPA, but that, you know, that's their decision. And I've just, you know, asked the contractor to, you know, finish the basins. The EPA inspector took a walk with him. He gave him some good advice, and pointed out some things he saw that might, you know.
So you said the contractor was there?
Yeah,
when
he's
you
there.
met with the EPA?
Yep.
Okay.
And he's very cooperative, and he calls me and, you know, is this okay, is that okay? He wants to do it right, so. So the review's underway,
Right.
but there's problems out there.
Just wondering if, so, I mean, did this EPA guy have any suggestions for how to make this basin better, or is he just like, that's not his?
Finished building it.
Oh, okay.
It wasn't constructed. They hadn't completed, they switched over to installing pipe.
Okay.
And under all of these approvals, the first things that go in are your stormwater controls and erosion controls, and they have to be in, and they're not.
Right.
So, I mean, there was a debate out there 2 weeks ago that there were only 6-inch straw wattles, and that the
Right,
plan
should've
called for
been
a 12.
Right.
And the owner of the property told the contractor, we'll put in the 12s, but I'm not paying you for it. So that delayed that. I mean, this has just been a fight of pulling teeth to get money spent on compliance things out there. And that's why I brought EPA out there, because that'll be the end of pulling teeth. They are the teeth, and once they're into you, that's that.
So you expect then that once these how many basins?
I don't even know if they're designed properly. You know, these were designed years and years ago. And
Well, they're going to peer review, so how can they install them if they haven't been peer reviewed yet?
they're reviewing the plans. They don't go out and measure the basins and look at erosion controls. They're reviewing the stormwater report.
Right, but
What's
if
the calculation?
if they feel that there's a discrepancy there, how can they install those basins per the plans if they don't think they're gonna?
The only one saying there's a discrepancy is myself and the inspector. Even the basin of 550, the comment was, you know, you've got to be kidding me. You know, that basin's gonna hold back all the water from this site? You know, it's just not possible. And the EPA inspector in the office went through the stormwater report, and he's like, see, you know, this isn't gonna work. And I don't think they're gonna be able to control stormwater, you know, after this job's built. You know, this is a major change to this piece of property, cutting down all those trees. And that's why when Bill called, he's like, I wanna go out, I wanna see it, I wanna review the plans, and something that's in all of these plans, because they were taken over from prior engineers, same thing with 550 and Deep Brook, is the engineer now signing the plan says, all of this information was gathered from another engineer. We have not analyzed it, and we don't certify it. That's what we're approving. So the disclaimer comes from the new engineer of record, and that's, did I bring a plan in with me? No. So I was gonna bring it in, but I didn't wanna make that meeting any longer than I had to either. And we had an internal meeting today on 550 and the other 4 Nexamp projects. And these jobs that were bought have disclaimers of this is somebody else's information and we don't back it up.
So the enforcement order is going to be, don't do anything else until you get these basins built. Is that,
So I didn't issue any enforcement order there.
you said one is coming, but it's not like it's coming from the EPA, or isn't it?
There's something coming from EPA.
Okay.
It could just be a request for information. You know, send us your report, send us pictures of your inspection, send us all of that. And if you can't provide that, then it probably moves into a monetary enforcement.
Okay.
But the wetlands inspector hasn't come out yet. So the EPA wetlands inspector is coming out. And that's her discipline as wetlands.
You're saying this was just the water quality?
This was just the water quality, and he's like, I'm only interested in brown water. You know, that's my focus. And there's plenty of other, you know, violations, and the same thing at 550, but he's not interested in that. So that lady will be coming out next week, and, you know, more information. But he did tell me that it could be as much as a month before his letter comes out, because it has to go through a committee, and sometimes it gets edited, and there's a lot of bells and whistles to the federal government process.
So go back to what you were saying, that the inspector mentioned to, is it Nate Gomes, is that the contractor?
Yes, yeah.
Was he telling him about basin construction, or what was?
Get your basin finished. We noticed that Nate had made like a channel down on the left side of one of the roads, and we were like, look, you know, your channel, you're inviting all of that water to waste down here. Get rid of that. And Nate did it the next day. But it wasn't something that, you know, that he picked up on and was causing him trouble. But each time I've gone there, he's installing pipe, he's not installing stormwater controls. And looking at the basin, the way he constructed it, it's big, but it was very shallow. But I didn't question it until peer review was done. But after having 8.5 inches of rain in you know, 2 weeks, actually it was that last storm, the 3.5-inch storm, just hammered everybody. So it'll get resolved, and EPA will make sure it gets resolved. And that's the beauty of the construction general permit.
So do you have a sense as to when EPA is going to be contacting Joe? Or
In the next month.
Okay.
Yep. He did call me the next day and get some contact information. Maybe he's moving a little faster, but he, you know, he's like, you know, it's not gonna, because Kevin Gaspar was there. Well, he was at 550, and he said, you know, when do you think? And he's like, there's no instant gratification here. You know, this takes time. So.
All right. So, clearly to be continued.
Yeah.
So
Motion to continue.
Thank you. In a second.
Second.
Favor?
Aye.
The last thing on here, then, discussion well, no, that's not the last thing, because there are 2 bullets. Next is the stormwater bylaw and stormwater regulation discussion. We are at 5 minutes to 8. I have finished my draft update of a proposed bylaw, proposed regulations, and I've sent it to them. Ryan's gotten back to me. I'm not sure if anybody else has had any chance to look in.
I did, yeah. I looked, I just.
And if there's comments you want to put on the record here. So, section 5, this is bylaw.
That's,
Oh, right. Section
whichever one has 21 pages.
The regulation.
Yeah, it'd be the regulation.
My computer's not working.
Okay.
Well, my computer's working, but my printer's not.
Now, once we finish this discussion, I'll send it to you if you want to have a look at it. So, in general terms, I certainly took what you sent that was prepared by Conoco, and I did some cross-reference with some other towns and what they did, because I was curious about their language, and looked back at what we had, and certainly did a rewrite on the tree thing, but,
Page 6.
so anyway, so that's how I did my
Yeah.
process. There wasn't need to change a lot of stuff.
Section K,
Yeah,
okay?
so that's
Now,
it.
if you go to page 14, section 7, part G.
Two different timelines there.
Okay, that's okay.
Part G.
Yeah, section 7,
Section
This
7.
says 1 year, the other one says 90 days.
90 days, yeah.
Shall submit as-built drawings.
And the other one says as-built also.
And 1 year's a long time to wait for an estimate.
Yeah, nice catch. That's why we do this. We're good, thank you.
That was my only, after reading through it
That
twice,
explains that
was my
piece of
biggest
paper in front of
complaint.
you. Rick, what do you
You'll
got?
think what that is.
Criteria for small projects, is that something gonna be in section 4 in the waivers? I mean, how are we gonna
We're
handle
looking
that?
at bylaw or,
I'm looking at regulations, actually.
so, criteria for,
Because we've talked about, those general projects that are not,
Right.
they're gonna be exempt. So, I mean, how do we address that? Waivers, or, there is language in there about written waiver request.
that's a good,
What section was that?
Section 4 waivers?
in the regulations.
Yeah, in the regulations.
What page?
Whoops, it's early.
Page 3 and 4.
Yep, it just starts
Oh, yeah,
right at the
yeah.
bottom of the
So
page.
I don't know, is that where we address that there, or I don't
Yeah,
think it addresses it now?
I wish we had the minutes.
I know, because I know, I both.
I was gonna put you on the spot, but I decided.
No,
Yeah.
yeah, no, I don't. have-
What's that?
Give an example of a project.
Like
Like
a shed.
deck replacement? or a
Yeah,
shed?
deck replacement, yeah.
Right. Are you saying that this has come up in the past? Is that what you were just asking Joanne, or are you asking about something else?
No, we were talking about one.
Oh, okay.
We have some different information, but we didn't want to make things worse.
Yeah, we were going to put that one.
Yeah.
Okay, Rick, so let's,
I want to caution you that I did call Kevin McHugh and talk to him, and there are some things in here that are mandatory.
yeah.
So we,
In terms of the bylaw?
in terms of the bylaw,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, I don't think I took anything up.
Yeah, so he said, be careful what you
No, you
do
didn't
with
do
that.
And and as I was reading, I was looking at what the EPA has on their website.
Okay.
But
Yeah,
yeah, I didn't,
he didn't change it.
I appreciate you calling Kevin. I didn't,
I wanted to see if he was
ended up
gonna
putting
answer.
I ended up putting a couple of things in that I had seen
Yeah.
from other towns, including things that wouldn't be exempt or, exemptions. But I don't think I took anything out. So, so in terms of what to do with those general projects, I'd seen that language somewhere else too.
Yeah, I looked for a couple of adjacent towns to see if they address it. They didn't.
So-
I didn't look any further.
So what was recommended was that we have a general permit
Yeah.
for those
Right,
type
you
of
mentioned
projects.
that. Yeah, general
That,
permit.
that has an expedited process, it doesn't have peer review, and has a reasonable fee attached to it.
Yes.
kind of like the construction general permit that EPA allows everyone to use, and here's the minimum requirements of our general permit. And that's what they recommend here, is that for these small projects, we don't bog everybody
Right,
down.
yeah, the only things we have to define what's small, you know, that's,
Well, but you don't have to define it by square footage, you could just
Okay.
say sheds, decks, pools,
okay,
and those things. And that's a
Sounds
broader
good.
brush,
yeah.
and go with that, but you don't wanna have these projects going on and just being approved because they're exempt, and finding out that somebody really wasn't
No, I see what you mean.
truthful about what they're doing. I mean, it's, when I get asked to sign off on something, I go out and look at it. I don't just go on the computer and click on it and say, oh, yeah, there's no wetlands. So,
What about like animal sheds or
Hmm.
barns, small barns or, how does that?
Some of that gets approved by Board of Health too, right? Doesn't
I was
it?
gonna say, there's Board of Health regulations about the
Yeah.
whole animal
I
and
know
farm
animal
thing.
control does too.
Mhm.
Live over it, but I don't know, that's something.
I mean, that's where most of the information comes from about violations. Is from people coming in and applying to do things, and on their plan, the wetlands are delineated. And then you go look online and you see there's a swimming pool in the wetlands, or you see something
Yeah.
else, and it's not on the plan. It didn't make it onto the plan that there was a pool or something there, so.
So like for that, you know, generally, obviously it'd be something that's within the buffer zone. And if it's an animal barn or shed, we would.
So if anything in the
we would wait
buffer
for
zone, there should be an
approval.
IDA.
Yeah.
There should be an IDA.
Oh, yeah, yeah, of course.
If there's anything in the buffer zone.
Right, right.
We need to get away from
Yep, yep.
just signing off on that stuff.
Yep.
Um,
So animal sheds or barns, if it's something that's been approved by Board of Health or, then yeah, we wouldn't. we wouldn't-
Yeah.
Yeah, I would rather have it.
Because they could be
with them,
bigger,
and
they
if
could
it-
be
and if
smaller,
it's-
they could,
Right, and if there's nothing that's
but
within
it
the,
depends on
that's within the
where they
buffer
are.
zone, and if
Yeah.
Board of Health's approved it.
Yeah.
But,
Thinking of that, Chipaway Stables, remember what the farmer asked us
Yep.
about the stone pad there?
Mhm.
Yeah,
So things like that.
yeah, that's,
That was a manure pad, right? Was that what it was?
Yeah.
Or something.
how about those ducks down
But
there?
stuff like that should go through the commission.
Yeah, because of,
all right,
It's
so
a little
that's
more
something.
specific, I think.
All right, so that's something to, and that would go in, I think that would go in the regulations as opposed to the bylaw, right? Is it like a general
Yep,
permit?
yep.
Yeah.
You know, there's no harm in requiring RDAs. It doesn't require an engineered plan and those things. It requires a sketch and a site visit.
Mhm.
And had 550 even gone through an RDA, you know, we would have benefited from that, what happened out there.
Okay. All right, Rick, thanks for that. I'll
Yeah.
figure out some language.
Just really don't think right now.
For Everett's input, Heidi, any,
No,
Ryan, anything else?
I'm not a fan of the general permit, but
How do you mean?
I'm just not, just another expense. I mean, for a deck, to get a general permit for stormwater, I think it's foolish. But that's up to you guys, you know?
What does it, would it require, I guess, yeah. for having that
It's
one
another
like-
fee, it's another hearing, it's another everything for
But
a
you're
deck.
saying stormwater's not important.
No, not at all. If either that, or we just make a disturbance area, you know, make a square footage of disturbance for that too, for a general, that would require a general permit.
Meaning a threshold, and if it hits that threshold.
Whatever, however,
Yeah.
like 40,000 square feet for a stormwater permit, you would need to be disturbing however many square feet for a general permit. And then we could have a public hearing on it or whatever, but you're already dealing with the building inspector for a deck. You know, I'm not,
Well,
it's just a lot more hearings and it's a lot more of this, it's a more overtime, it's more this,
But that's what it takes to do the job.
for a deck.
No, for stormwater, for the environment, for
Yeah,
the
I
wetland,
get
for the
it.
groundwater, for all of those things. You're spending, I don't know how many $1,000s of taxpayer dollars on MS4 work and outside engineers, but then you want to go let a homeowner do whatever they want to do because it's not a big thing. So I
I haven't
Seems
seen,
like a.
I have this thing.
I haven't seen a general permit
Yeah, I think it's a matter of degree, Paul.
in
Yeah.
anybody else's regulations,
Be
but
aware of that too, before giving it.
But some towns have to have a way to address that. I mean, that must have something.
Just can't be open season.
Right, right. Well, certainly they're thinking we're gonna be stricter about RDAs and that kind of stuff.
You're a town of more resources and wet meadows and all of these things. You have unique conditions compared to other towns that are further from the ocean and further from the coast. You do.
Mhm.
And you know, all these coalitions are spending all this money to buy open space and preserve groundwater and do all these things, but we want to give it up. And I don't know why you would want to do that.
I think it's a matter of degree that we're talking about.
Yeah, it is, yeah.
As opposed to just
Yeah,
general giveaway.
yeah.
I know, but if we're not getting the opportunity to go look at it, we're taking everybody's word for face value of what they said they were gonna do. There's no eyes on it. There's no nothing.
Okay.
And that's problematic.
See if I can find some language.
Yeah, I'll look too, I'll look around.
We'll pose it and-
I actually thought there was something on the EPA side about their general permit, and some suggestions, and
That might be.
I'll look tomorrow.
I'm going to do that.
Yeah, I'll look at that too.
All right, thank you for feedback there on this last thing here, stormwater revolving account.
We beat that up already?
Yeah, we did.
Yep.
Okay. You have an update regarding inspections or?
Yeah, but we'll do it at the next meeting. It's not
Okay.
gonna change anything. It's
All right.
probably, 20 minutes of seeing all the inspection pictures.
All right, so we have our next meeting on the 22nd, our next site visit's on the 18th. Like Delta will be, fingers crossed, for the figures that there's no. All right, I haven't asked for a motion to adjourn yet, I'm just saying that the next site visit will be the 18th, as long as there's no Arctic freeze again. Yes?
So on the inspection note, I was unable to contact the owner of 309 Perry Hill Road on that wetlands
Oh, yeah.
situation, but they contacted us.
Hmm.
So someone saw it on TV and called them up. I got a call from an engineer that they've hired. They've signed a contract with an engineer. They're willing to, do whatever they have to do to fix it. So we've got a site visit there on the 18th as well. Their engineer has already agreed to be there. And the first part of the phone call was, there has been no wetlands alterations and it's all vegetated and all of that. And then when I mentioned the aerial photos, he said, well, their cows were getting scratched up, getting into the brambles and stuff. And then I said, well, you realize EPA is involved in this, and that's when it was like, we're gonna do whatever we have to do. And EPA, is involved in this. She sent me maps that EPA has of areas that they've highlighted on their maps that they would like our peer review person to focus on the site visit. And their estimate is between 3 and 4 acres of wetlands have been altered there. That's EPA's estimate. So we're good to go there.
Okay, good.
And they're willing to, right now, do whatever they have to do. And that's great news.
Okay. Anybody else with business for the commission?
Can I just go over, Bob, do you want to stick to the same schedule? Hathaway Road, we'll do the Perry Hill Road, Peckham Road, and then Main Street for
Well,
Napson.
Peckham we signed off on.
Yep.
So we don't have to do that.
Oh.
Peckham we voted on today.
No, we
No, we continued because of the,
No.
because
Board of
of,
Health.
Yeah.
Board of Health.
Yeah, should read my notes.
No, it was Eversource
Yeah,
that
it's
we,
been continued.
Yeah, so we don't have to go to Eversource.
Right,
Yeah, let's go to Peckham.
so you want to go to Peckham. So
Yeah.
same schedule, Hathaway Road, Perry Hill.
I told Perry Hill we'd be there at 9.
Okay, that works out because
Okay.
if you go to Hathaway Road, maybe you can make,
Oh, I don't know.
is that,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, that would be-
8:45 for Hathaway Road.
maybe a couple of minutes earlier, but yeah.
Yeah.
So I've been contacted by.
I mean, I can change him around if you want, I just didn't.
No, it's right up the road.
Okay, so, and then it would be,
Go
Peckham and then back to Main Street?
By
Or
50.
now that you're not going that way? I can work that with you.
Yeah, we don't need to do that right now.
But you still want to do that, right? You still want to go to,
No, yeah, and especially if Bill Madden's going to be able to be
Yep.
there, we want to do that.
Right, oh, that's right, you said that, yep, okay, I'm making my notes. All right, and we had no additional new filings, so this will be what you
So
have.
what's the deadline for those? Is it this coming Friday?
It was, the
Oh,
first was because
It was
of the
today.
holiday. Let's see, so February 1st was for the 22nd, because we have the holiday in there for President's Day, so I
Yeah.
gotta run the ad for 5 days, so I had to
Yeah.
move it up a week.
Okay.
So there was nothing on the 1st. So the next filing deadline would be the 22nd of February.
All right, so for the next
Same.
meeting, we have continuances.
Yeah.
Okay.
So since the last meeting, there have been a number of calls from abutters to Hathaway Road.
Oh,
Yes.
okay.
So,
Okay, somebody,
Motion to adjourn.
in a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned, 8:10.